the Elements releases on August 5th. With some of the best decks in the game's history coming to the game, and some of the strongest support for older decks we've ever seen, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is moving into an entirely new era, and there's no going back. Here's Sprite, Blue, Jet, and Pixies are Dark Thunder monsters that can all summon themselves if there's a level or rank 2 monster on the field. Blue searches another Sprite monster on summon, Jet searches a Sprite back row, and Pixies is honest for level, rank, and link 2 monsters. Red and Carrot are Fire Thunder monsters that can summon themselves if there's a level or link 2 monster on the field, and can gain a monster or spell trap respectively by tributing a 2, then destroy that card if you tributed a rank or link 2. Sprite Starter, you're kidding me. Starter? What's next? Sprite Extender? Sprite WinCon? Sprite Starter summons a Sprite from deck. It's literally a starter is the thing. Like, it'd be one thing if I'm getting off topic. It summons a Sprite from deck but burns you equal to its attack and locks you into level, rank, and link 2 monsters for the turn. Sprite Smashers banishes a Sprite, Springan, or Therion from your graveyard to summon a Springan from deck, a Therion from grave, or banish a 2 you control and a card your opponent controls. Gamma Burst boosts all the 2s you control by 1400 and can banish itself from grave to give 1/2 1400. Sprite Elf is a link that requires a level, rank, or link 2, can't be used as link material the turn it's summoned, and gives anything it points to targeting protection, and can quick effect reborn a level 2 or a rank or link 2 if your opponent controls a monster. And Gigantic Sprite is a generic rank 2 that can use link 2s as material, gets double attack while it has an extra deck monster attached, and can detach a material to lock both players to 2s for the turn and summon any level 2 monster from deck. In the OCG, this deck took over almost immediately. Owing to their synergy with any deck with level 2s, there's a huge amount of splashability to experiment with, both to support them as a pure strategy or to be used as an engine. All of their names either function as extenders that then either grab another extender or set up early disruption that can protect your combo from hand traps. Or if you're Pixies, you don't do any of that, but you try your best, and that's the important part. Blue, Jet, and Starter have an almost gadget-like symbiotic relationship, each one accessing you the next and snowballing into several level 2 materials on board. Blue and Jet need you to stick a 2 to the board so you can special summon them, but Starter can be fired whenever at the cost of some life points and locking yourself earlier than Gigantic. Even in the draw phase when Blue's search will be safe from droll. For normal summons, there's plenty of great rank 2 enablers that can either flood the field with 2s for Blue to summon off of, or 1 card into Gigantic to go from there, like Nimble Beaver, who can summon a second copy of himself from deck or graveyard, making him great to grind with, or Deep Sea Diva, who can also set up multiple tuner bodies to make things like an early Arclight or Halqifibrax. Some lists even use Dark Beckoning Beast, who can set up 2 level 2 dark monsters off just the normal summon and therefore make Djinn Buster on the 3rd summon, while leaving behind a Spirit Gates to reborn a Beckoning Beast every turn. Since Blue, Jet, and Pixies are all dark, they can make Djinn Buster 2 in hands that don't include Beckoning, and since they all summon off a level or rank 2, you can make Djinn early with Beckoning, then summon Blue with a bit of protection up for his effect. And all of this, of course, is leading to Gigantic, the big boy who can pivot you wherever you want to go. The most commonly seen target is Swap Prog, who can mill Ronin Toaded to at the very least be another link material after linking off the swap, but also by going into Elf and bringing back Swap to send another frog for Ronin to banish, you can overlay Swap and Ronin into Totally Awesome, meaning any way to Gigantic is a 1-card Toad line. But don't forget, Elf is a quick effect and can reborn rank 2s as long as your opponent controls a monster, so you can bring back Toad after using this negate, so your 1-card lines end on 2 Omni negates with targeting protection thanks to Elf, and usually Red or Carrot on top of that for 1 more negate, or a set Smashers for a banish. And it's not just the impressive turn 1 that makes the deck strong. Elf is also a premium grind tool, triggering Blue or Jet again and again every turn for more searches, and keeping Toad in rotation for more negates. And Toad also generates follow-up, adding back a frog every time he uses his effect, or even putting himself back in the extra to make again. But that's just one direction the deck can take. There's also been experimentation with Evil Twins, since all the main deck monsters are level 2, and most of their extra is link 2s. Elf can assist in reviving your twins to pop or draw on demand, and Red and Carrot can help manage which twins are on board, clearing away a Lilla to negate and destroy, so that later on you can revive it to pop something. And this is to say nothing of some of the more generic options available to you under the 2 lock like Masquerena. How it can integrate things like Plague Spreader into your lines and be left up to prep quick synchro plays on your opponent's turn when you're not locked, but can also summon hand traps like Ash if you're not locked yet, or Hopier if you are, so that your swap frog can bounce it back to hand. In the OCG, this play was huge as a way to search Max C, Since it's not a tuner, it has to be your Gigantic summon, and you have to draw the swap, so it's not quite as consistent as searching your other hand traps. Jeez, I haven't even gotten a chance to talk about Gigantic's effect to use a Link 2 as material. Not only does this give you an outlet to turn links that can't be used as material, like Elf or a Hashima, into further advantage, it also means that any Hulk line can get you to Gigantic by summoning a level 2 tuner, so you can use something like a Punk Engine to start your plays, and use E-Telly to either get Xiamen or summon Gamma as just a free level 2. You can apply this logic to any Link 2 that grants you access to a level 2, like Romulus and Phalanx, and choosing himself on that extra deck HGH up to 3200 attack makes Gigantic a pretty competent Zeus enabler as well, although there are some better options in the rank 2 pool. But being able to make the Big Yoshi threaten end of main to force something out, and then say Psych and use Gigantic in main phase instead gives you a great mind game that your opponent will have to respect. And there's so much more that the deck has access to, but for now suffice to say, in sided games you can make Mannequin Cat to summon things outside the normal level 2 sphere that can hose certain matchups. Thunder King Ryo shares a type with the sprites, and therefore in the mirror when your opponent specials blue, you can Mannequin Cat on Chain Link 2 to make their search disappear. And for a more all-around style Floodgate, Gigantic can summon Ibli to lock your opponent out of special summons, at least if you can keep their normal summon from sticking so they can make a Link 2, and forcing them to control a monster so they won't be able to summon Fenrir. Sorry about that, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, this deck burst onto the scene in the OCG, putting up functionally tier 0 results near the beginning of Pope format, but they were all of them deceived, for another best deck was made, deep in the lore of Vsauce Starfrost. Tearlament's Rhinoheart mills a Tearlament monster on summon, and if he's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, he can reborn himself by sending a tear from hand to grave. Sharon, Havnus, and Merly are Dark Aqua monsters that fusion summon by bottoming material including themselves from hand, field, or graveyard whenever they're sent to the grave by a card effect. Merly mills 3 on summon, Sharon can summon herself, pitch a monster from hand, and then mill 3, and Havnus can summon itself when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, then mill 3. Primeval Planet Perlareno searches Vsauce or a tier monster on activation, boosts all fusions and tiers you control by 5, and if a tier returns to the deck, you can pop a card on the field. Metanoise can book an opponent's monster, then mill a tier, and if it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, adds a tier from graveyard to hand. Sulliek is a continuous trap that negates a monster and sends one you control to the graveyard once each turn, and when it's sent to the graveyard, searches a tier monster. And Crime is an Omni-Negate and Shuffle counter trap that also sends a monster from hand to graveyard, and when it's sent to the grave, adds back a banished tier. Tearlament's Kitkalos is level 5 fusion of a tier and an aqua that searches or mills a tier card on summon, can send a monster you control to the graveyard to summon a tier from hand or graveyard, and when she's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, she mills 5. And Tearlament's Kaleido Heart is a fusion of Rhino Heart and 2 aquas that can't be used as fusion material, shuffles back an opponent's card on summon, or when an aqua hits the grave, and if he's sent to the graveyard, you can reborn him and mill a Tearlament. These cards are far less straightforward and far less linear than Sprite, but certainly no less powerful. Like its ideological ancestor Lightsworn, this deck relies on a wide variety of random mill effects to try and hit one of their fusion summoning names to build up their board. But along the way, you can mill things like Sulliek to search one of them, or Rhino Heart who can bring himself back by pitching one from hand, which will also trigger the fusion effect, because remember, they can trigger anytime they're sent from anywhere as long as it's for effect. Therefore, you can even do things like play King of the Swamp, who can broaden the horizons of what tiers can fuse into, but also can search Polymerization, an old school way to send a monster to the graveyard by card effect. This will give you the option of playing Guardian Chimera, who neither can be summoned by tier effects nor wants to be, followed by something like a Millennium Eyes, who can be made either with Swamp or Instant Fusion. But you know, now that we're on the topic of instant fusion, Kitkalos may very well be the best instant fusion target ever printed. No need to draw the one of though, because her material line is extremely manageable. Between 12 tier monster names, 9 of them being aquas, there's no shortage of access to her if you just hit a name off the top. The free searcher mill can at bare minimum let you grab Sulliek to set as a negate that will trigger her mill 5 on your opponent's turn, but also if you grab Merly from deck, you can use Kit to send herself and summon the Merly, triggering a sequence of 8 mills off the top. From that point, if you hit a name, and at this point I should just be saying when you hit a name, you can fuse Kitkalos into a Dragostapelia, so you not only have a negate, but also the Kitkalos is back in the extra, ready to be used again turn after turn. And that's where the true power of this archetype makes itself apparent. Oftentimes you won't have a turn 1 end board of 10 interruptions, but you'll have a few alongside a bunch of ways to trigger your effects again on your opponent's turn to snowball into more potential disruption and follow-up. A common face for this deck's turn 1 is Time Thief Redoer, which, maybe nabs a trap off the top of your opponent's deck, but will serve mostly as a way to on-demand detach either Sharon or Rhino Heart for effect, triggering them on a new chain. That'll let you go for things like Kaleido Heart on your opponent's turn to spin something, or just the pop effect of Perlareno that'll trigger whenever one of your fusion effects resolves. For the same reason, you'll see this deck running Sprite Elf quite often, since it can be made with Merly or any random Link 2, and its effect can protect your fusions from targeting and revive Merly every turn to get 3 more mills. And it goes without saying the traps are extremely strong pieces of disruption that at worst require you to send something from field, which will trigger your fusion effects, and at best are also Foolish Burial. And perhaps the most outrageous way to attempt to get a fusion off is Havnus, who functions like any old hand trap and therefore can be used as early as turn 0. While your opponent is trying to set up their board turn 1, you can use Havnus, hit a tier name, summon Kitkalos, mill another tier, and use that to make Dragostapelia. Or if you play a Shadow package, you have the potential to hit a tier and a Shadow, so you can get like a draw with Beast, and then make Winda, and suddenly we're not having fun anymore. If you want to get a bit more aggressive turn 1, you can load up on Dangers, extenders that send from hand for effect and cycle draws, so you'll see even more of your deck alongside all the mills. This amount of Dark extension will make it easy to summon Curious, who can mill a name if you want to just guarantee a fusion, or mill Snow, another payoff that can generate value off the random crap your mills will leave lying around in the trash. And this is just a slight sampling of all the different directions you can go to Zombie Vampire, Branded Fusion, Kagutsuchi, D3S Frog, but the build of the deck to look out for is still yet to come. The non-archetypal series of retrains of cards used by Ishizu Ishtar in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anime have taken this deck to completely new heights in the OCG, giving them massive potential for snowballing since any mill can trigger 5 more, and new means of disruption as the shufflers can mess up your opponent's graveyard or shuffle back your own cards to trigger Perlareno on demand. While Sprite took the tier 0 spot in the early parts of the format, Tier quickly took its place and far surpassed it in the OCG, somehow power creeping a tier 0 deck out of the format. There's no doubt about it, when it comes to the best decks in the game's history, this one is the strongest. What are you doing? Editing. You know this isn't going to change anything, right? If people like the first one and I make this one even better, then they'll like it even more. That's basic math. You failed math like 5 times. I don't need your fucking opinion, man, alright? You are losing your mind chasing ghosts. You're one to fucking talk. Exosister Martha can summon itself from hand and an Ellis from deck if your board is clear aside from Xyz monsters, but locks you to Exosisters for the entire turn. And if a card leaves either graveyard, can rank up into an Exosister Xyz monster. Returnia can pay 8 if you only control Exosisters to banish a card from your opponent's field or graveyard, then either performs an Xyz summon, or if you've Xyz summoned at any point this turn, can banish a second card your opponent controls. These cards are huge for Exosister, addressing a few of their more glaring issues. Martha makes any of your rank 4s for absolutely free, letting you get Michaelis' Spell Trap Search or Caspitel's Monster Search to extend with before the normal summon. And her second effect fixes the inherent issue of all the other sisters, whose Kiss costume change only triggers off of opponent's effects, so you can leave her on an end board, and once your opponent puts something in their trash, use something like Cold Buyer or Bistia, DD Crow to trigger her rank up. Similarly, Returnia is a much more proactive trap to find with Michaelis to use as disruption. Vadis is a strong response to exactly an effect that would trigger Exosisters, but not much else. Returnia is almost always 2 banishes because the second banish is easily enabled by Magnificus Tagout effect. But if you haven't used that this turn, you can wield the Quick Xyz as a way to convert 2 stray level 4s into Michaelis or 2 rank 4s into Magnifica. This method of overstepping the deck's gimmick while still kind of working with it is salvage the deck's personality as a highly anti-graveyard deck while giving it better tools to set up boards and disrupt the opponent. And interestingly, this anti-graveyard identity has made the deck into a strong sleeper pick in the OCG as Tearlament gained popularity. Since the deck plays well with Dimension Shifter, you have the opportunity to shut down the early stages of the game for a Tearlament's player, and since just about any game action Tearlament can make will trigger Exosisters, you can wield your Floodgate effects like Esophiel more effectively. Since your average Sprite turn will go through at the very least Elf, your matchup into the other candidate for best deck isn't awful either. However, Exosister never got a major foothold in the format, and the cracks started to show as people learned the matchup. For one thing, Martha still isn't a 1-card combo in a Magnifica. She can make 1 Xyz on her own, which can search another Exosister card, but remember the reason that's so good for the deck is that no other Exosister card can do that. Whether you make Michaelis or Caspitel, no search can then on its own convert into a second Xyz. You'll often have to just search Stella so you can normal her and then special a second Exosister that you drew from hand. To make matters worse, Martha hard locking you out of special summoning anything outside the archetype for the entire turn cuts you off of the vast majority of extenders and rank 4 enablers that can help you get to the second Magnifica material. So Martha is a valuable consistency tool, making your win con at least more consistent than fucking Utopia, but with an extremely unforgiving drawback. It's unfortunate for Exosister, but sometimes it can be hard trying to live up to such lofty expectations. Mathmech Circular is a level 4 light Cyberse monster that mills a Mathmech monster for cost to summon itself from hand, but only lets you attack with 1 monster for the rest of the turn. And if a Mathmech is summoned, searches a Mathmech spell or trap. This card revolutionizes Mathmech, giving them 1-card combos to reach the extremely powerful Super Factorial, a trap card that, like Tri-Brigade... Fuck. later on you can revive it to pop something. Another good place for them is in Tri-Brigade, since Kit and Karis are level 2, while Farigit, Bearbrum, and Double Dragon Lords are Link 2s you can make under the Gigantic Lock. Adding sprites not only gives you a new angle to find your level 2 tries, but also lets you add Red and Carrot as negates to your board, as well as the infinite recursion of Elf. A trap card that, like Tri-Brigade Revolt, quickly summons your extra deck boss Laplacian with material from the grave, removing up to 2 cards from the field and even 1 from the hand, as well as prep an Omni-Negate with Diameter. Starting from just Circular, you can mill Sigma, who can summon himself for free, triggering Circular to search Super and setting up Alimbertion. From there you can search Diameter, setting up the material to either make Heat Soul and draw some hand traps, which you have plenty of room for, or go through Disciple and Devotee to set up an IP that can make Apollo on your opponent's turn once Sigma's lock wears off. So it's not quite a balls to the wall combo deck, but it can consistently set up a few interruptions with just Circular or anything that searches it, and since Alimbertion can also search Circular, you can even enable it with a rank 4 engine like Parallel Exceed. And the deck can also go second extremely well, because even though Circular locks you out of attacking too much, the deck has access to one of the best OTK lines in the game, Update Access Code, which can inflict 10,000 damage with just one monster doing all the attacking. This deck kind of struggled in the OCG because although the sprite matchup is alright, against Tearlament, Laplacian is practically a liability, potentially hitting a tier out of hand and extending for them. And on top of that, Mathmech loses to Shifter just about as hard as Tyr does, so the prevalence of Tyr in the format means most relevant rogue will have targeted hate for you as well. Vernasylph, my god, what a horrible mouthfeel, is a series of Earth Fairies that can discard themselves and another monster to reborn an Earth monster, but locks you to only activating Earth effects for the rest of the turn. Flourishing Hills also searches a Vernasylph card and protects your Vernasylph monsters from card effects. Awakening Forest mills an Earth monster, but can't reborn the one it milled, and can double a Vernasylph monster's attack. Flowering Fields adds an Earth from grave to hand, and protects Vernasylphs from targeting, and Thawing Mountains draws a card and give a Vernasylph a second attack. Vernasylph Corolla treats all Earths as Vernasylphs, and once per turn lets you use a Vernasylph from hand without having to discard a second monster. Flower Buds bounces an equal number of Earths you control and monsters your opponent controls, and Changing Seasons either adds back or reborns a Vernasylph and can banish itself from graveyard to soul charge your Vernasylphs, but bounce them to hand in the end phase. These cards, this deck, you still don't know what these cards do, huh? Shut up, just give me a second. No one's gonna care if you just say they're bad until Dabble. I said, give me a second, alright? So these cards are a neat new potential engine for Earth decks that unfortunately are just a little below the curve value-wise and have a pretty difficult restriction to work with. They all at least kind of go neutral in card advantage. Hills replaces itself so you can guaranteed activate a second Sylph, Fields and Mountains get you an extra card, and Forests can trigger effects in Grave that can even get you an extra body like Revival Golem. Corolla is really weird in that it reads like an apology for all the deck's shortcomings despite being in the first wave. Flower Buds is a neat disruption, but it's only searchable with Hills, and Changing Seasons is a really slow soul charge for a bunch of monsters that do a whole lot of nothing on field. So what precisely do we do with them? You can load up on Earths that you want to be able to summon turn 1 but don't have a great way to, like Pankratops. That's not very consistent at all. You can make whatever extra deck monsters you want, just can't activate non-Earth, so you can make the bodies for Mask or Apo pretty easily, but plenty of decks do that far better. The only existing deck that's really comfortable taking on the lock is, I guess, Earth Machine. I guess a couple extenders to convert some of your monsters in hand into bodies on board is alright. The free draw with Mountains is a fine bonus for that. Maybe Madolche, not bad for old Quack Silverman. Anyway, this archetype doesn't really make sense as its own deck and doesn't accomplish very much as an engine, so my best guess is you might just play a few copies of one of them that just happen to perform a relevant function for your deck, like if you want to draw or need to mill an Earth, and maybe Hills to search that one, but I don't see much beyond that. Punk Jam Dragon Drive is a level 8 synchro that requires a Psychic Tuner, searches or mills any level 3 Psychic on summon by paying 6, and if your opponent chains to a Punk card, can reborn itself. Punk Jam Extreme Session is a field spell that can banish a Punk from grave to summon one from hand, and twice per turn when you pay life to activate a Psychic monster effect, draws a card. These cards do a lot for Punk as a pure deck, giving them a lot more consistency and filling in some gaps in the deck's design space. For one thing, Extreme Session is an actually playable search target for Wagon. All the spells before just imparted some wonky protections to your Punks and weren't really worth a damn. Extreme Session is not only an extender that works well alongside Dragon Drive Search, but also adds Pot of Fucking Greed to a standard Punk turn that you can even squeeze a third draw out of on your opponent's turn with Sharakusai's quick effect. This makes the deck work really well as a control deck that can set up a couple disruptions with Amazing Dragon in one of the traps, while also drawing a bunch of hand traps. And Dragon Drive is a great stepping stone for that, since it can be made with Wagon and Deer Note that you summon with Rising Carp, and search Madame Spider, triggering Extreme to draw. Then you can trigger her a second time by summoning Spider and using her effect. And of course, Dragon Drive does have just that Couple other search targets like Psychic Tracker and Wielder, 2 extenders that can get you to a rank 3 to add to your board. Ghost Ogre, a hand trap that's actually quite strong into Sprite since Gigantic detaches for effect. And some weird shit like Lulu and Wendy and fucking Pencil Plume. In Pure Punk, Dragon Drive is a welcome addition, but as an engine it doesn't really open up enough avenues where you might want it over Chaos Damn it! Lying around in the trash. Another way to get your mills rolling is with Chaos Ruler, which you can make either with clever maneuvering with Destrudo, or by using a small punk engine with Shit! So you can use something like a punk engine to start your plays, and use E-Telly to either get Xiamen or summon Gamma as just a free level 2. And with the punk engine, you go through Chaos Ruler to try and dig for a blue or a jet before making Hulk. And if you manage to get a dark in the grave, you can even bring back Ruler and tune it with your level 2 tuner into Baron. Baron Jaxel.
What?
I just want to let you know, it's been like 5 straight minutes since the last time you made a joke.
Fine!
Melfi Wally can summon itself from hand during the end phase, and when your opponent summons a monster or attacks Wally, it can bounce back to hand to summon 2 Melfis from deck. Melfi Penis, it's funny because I said penis. Melfi Penny can summon itself as a quick effect at any point during a turn where your beast returned to hand, then immediately synchro summon using itself and Melfis in hand, and during the end phase can attach itself to a beast Xyz you control. Melfi Staring Contest can trade a beast from hand with a Melfi from deck, and during your opponent's battle phase can reveal Melfis from hand to dock your opponent's monsters by the combined attack and defense of the revealed monsters. And Merry Melfis bounces a monster when it's special summoned, and when your opponent summons or attacks it, can return to the extra and summon a Melfi Xyz. As a Melfi expert myself, I can personally say that this wave of support addresses almost everything the deck could want fixed. Wally acts as a nexus point from which to access both Catty and Puppy, the deck's 2 big disruptive playmakers. Before, the only way to get both of them was through Rescue Cat, a massive ash magnet that only works since you can wash off the negatedness with Joyous. With Wally, you can build your full board with any way to access him, which includes not only Staring Contest, a themed sign-up mining, but also Melfis of the Forest, a generic rank 2 you can make with Nimble Beaver that also represents a kinda awkward but certainly usable negation. And of course, you can also get to Wally through Gigantic Sprite, and by extension, incorporate a much larger Sprite engine into your deck of all level 2s. And then of course there's Penny, a new take on Catty's longtime associate Hopbeard Squadron that goes in a new direction to more actively work with Melfi. The problem with Catty has always been that she doesn't represent a disruption on her own. Hopbeard needs there to be a 2 on board to make Herald. With Penny, you can end on Catty alone and have an interruption in Herald or Mary by using the Catty enhanced material. And while that's a great improvement to the floor, this also improves the ceiling as you can use as many Melfis in hand as you want. By resolving Wally and then both Catty and Puppy on field, you'll end up with 6 stars of Melfis in hand and a Kalantosa on field, so you can do things like Penny straight into a level 8 like Savage, or into Desert Locust to hand rip before tuning the Kalantosa. But of course, while this ceiling increase is good for Melfi's a pure deck, the improved floor makes it better as a small engine for, oh, you know, any deck that can very easily make a rank 2. In Sprite, you can use Gigantic to summon Catty, or you can spare an extra deck slot on Forest to search Catty to get access to Herald and Mary on your opponent's turn through Penny. This is a much more manageable brick ratio than trying to play Puppy and Kalantosa, since Kalantosa is a hard garnet. If you draw Penny, you can proceed as normal and use Catty to search a Nimble Beaver to use as follow-up, which will still turn on the Penny effect. So for a 2-card main deck investment and a 3-card extra deck investment, you can potentially add a Monster Negate, an Omni, a Bounce, and a way to follow up to your end board. Some opponents of the over-enginization of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Will say that it's bullshit that Melfi cards can be used in this way, but unfortunately sometimes the people that make things you like have a different idea of what direction to take that product in, and can't appease everyone with that vision. So frankly, who the fuck cares what you think? Rika Princess can summon itself with no requirement, but locks you to plants while it's on the field, and can negate a monster effect while you control a Rika by shuffling itself back from hand or field into the deck and tributing a plant. Rika Concon can set a Rika spell or trap every turn, and once each turn if you would tribute a plant as cost for a Rika card, you can tribute an opponent's monster instead. These cards are both extremely strong new combo pieces for Rika that better define its place within modern plant decks. Princess is practically a new genre of extender unto itself with how absurdly free it is, and on top of that, whether you hold it in hand, immediately summon it then link it off, or strategically search it right around, let's say the 5th summon, just as a random example, it's a very easy to access protective element to keep hand traps from messing you up. And of course, if you don't need to burn it on your turn, that's just one more interaction for your opponent's turn. Hard to beat a card that summons itself for free and gives you an early monster negate. But what's maybe more important is Con, which, I mean, yeah, at first just sorta delays your Mudon search, but of course gets you more value every turn, and also has an extremely strong utility effect, taking some notes from Lair of Darkness to make some of your Rika cards into unrespondable board breakers going second, and making Sheet into a ridiculously strong disruption, allowing you to enable its steal mode not just without giving up any of your own board, but taking a piece of your opponent's board for its cost instead. To get to Con, you of course have Mudon, who can be your summon or one of your searches with Jasmine, so you have easy access to the engine through your Genus Loci lines, and in those combos you generally still have the juice to get to your big end bosses like Bengal Lancer, as well as some you might not have considered before like Hyperiton and Teardrop, both of which can be made with Strenna. There's even an argument you have better access to Regulus in this build, since Lily Borea is an 8 you can search with Glamour alongside Snowdrop. With all these easy ways to make early negates with plants, you probably don't even need to bother with the bulky adventure. God fucking... while leaving behind a Spirit Gates to reborn a Beckoning Beast every turn. Because Starter is such an easy way to get your plays started without the normal, and Blue and Jet can start your plays by special summoning themselves as long as any 2 sticks to the board, you can even forego normal summon engines to trade for the utility of the Adventure engine. Elemental Hero... Wait. What? That's it? Yeah, that was an extremely in-depth breakdown of Rika's role in... Where's Raider Dave? What the fuck do you mean, where's Raider Dave? Raider Dave was like the funniest part of the original video. Raider Dave was a complete nothing joke. It's an American Dad reference for the sake of it. Who cares? It's funny. You know what it was? Raider Dave is how I obscured from the viewer that I actually have no idea what these cards do or how to play this deck. It's just, oh, I'm sorry guys, I actually lied. I don't have everything you need to know. He is a silly voice though, and we don't fucking do that anymore. You're missing the point. Enlighten me then. You're not fixing imperfections, jackass. You're just making different sacrifices to make up for what you perceive as imperfections while throwing away everything people actually liked in the first place. I don't have to take this from you. You have to move on. You can't fix everything. Yes, I can! Let's talk about Lord for a second. This is Lad, but worse. It's got 3 negates instead of 5. 4. It has 4 negates, because it has to lower its defense too, and it runs out of increments of 500 defense before attack. I didn't forget this. Dude, this one literally did not fucking matter. 5 people bothered me about it. You mean 4? Shut! That's 10. Places an access counter on itself every time a card or effect is activated, and when it hits 10, oh yeah, what the hell happened here? Did something sort of out of order while subbing in the last couple audio tracks with the English names. Ended up cutting this text file and only fixing the first half by accident. Oh yeah, I remember that. Last day of editing. Were you so tired you almost threw up? I don't want to talk about it. With Media Roa up, you can even exploit that soft twice per turn by tributing off DA to add back 2 of the names you banished with him, then revealing Meteonis in hand to tribute those 2 and a secret third thing to bring back DA and use him again. Or you can link DA off with IP into Dynamondo so you can get not only the spin, but also the ability to tag into 2 more negates. Come on, man, you can't tell me this one bothered you. Shut up. Didn't you not even mention Dyna in the Photon? I said zip it! Dynamondo is a link to Cyberse that requires a ritual monster, shuffles back a ritual from grave and a card on field on summon, and can quick effect tribute itself to add back or reborn a ritual monster. This card is a great— I think you've made your point, Captain Long-Winded. If I wanted your opinion, I'd ask for it. This card is a great potential tool for ritual decks in a variety of ways. In Drytron, you can make it with a Ben 10 you control, then shuffle back the Ben 10 to remove one of your opponent's cards. This works both as removal on your turn, and of course is an almost objectively better IP summon than Unicorn, something not all decks have. And the quick effect tag out can be used to revive Magician of Black Chaos, locking your opponent out of monster effects for their whole turn. This is a good new win con for Drytron because it's kind of as easy as swiping the 2 materials off of Mu Beta, then linking off with the Mu Beta. A little worrisome having another lingering floodgate in the format, but it's likely to struggle as long as people are still maxing out on Bystials to beat Tearlaments. Tear Kitkalos, Tearlaments. Burn my house down at Mondo. Jaxal. Where the hell are we? We started spiraling and now we're in Phantom Nightmare. Ugh, don't make me think about this one. No one's making you think about anything. Why are we here? Why do you think we're here? Oh, that's easy. There's plenty I want to fix here. Yeah? You think that's gonna make you feel better? It's not about how I feel. It's about— I know. Everything. Also, Bonfire only searching the deck, unlike Wanted being able to scoop out of grave, means that once you use your one copy of Poplar, the other copies of Bonfire in your deck are dead, unless of course you're playing Snake Eye the deck rather than Snake Eye the engine. This has made Snake Eye much more capable of wielding Poplar than decks like Rescue Ace and Pure Fire King, especially since they have much more access to Poplar through Ash, and even theoretically Oak with his second effect. It also has more versatility with Poplar, since you can instead use him to grab Divine Temple, which can prep a resource in the back row that you can use either as a send for Ash and Oak then Reborn, or can hold there so that if your opponent uses a Nibiru, you can trigger the field spell to pull it out of the back row and keep extending. And since you can pretty easily go through all the Snake Eye names just by doing their thing, you can use the original summon on something more specialized like Jet Synchron to make Baron and Savage, or Ponix to pivot into a Fire King engine that uses Garunix and Kieran to pop a card on your opponent's turn, and Reborn Arvada for a monster negate. You can even max out on Kieran so that it can protect your Ash effect from targeted negation. The year is 2024, Salad doesn't lose to Nib! Other than that, the card's kinda whatever. It's been out in Master Duel for a while now as part of some sort of community outreach program like the Peace Corps, or that time Michelle Obama tried to get kids to play outside. All it really seems like she's doing there is looping pendulum cards and being generally forgettable. I think the lesson we're meant to take here is that she's not objectively that good of a card, objectively the most broken card in history. Instead, she's just part of the culmination. Oh my god, you have got to let this one go. Jaxel said Promethean Princess was bad. He should cut his nuts off. You were misinterpreted one time by a grand total of 2 people. That's 2 people more than it should have been. Open your eyes! You're not fixing anything. You're just being neurotic and spiteful.
Maybe you're just being complacent. Huh? You don't care about doing better. You don't want to be the best.
You mean the strongest?
Don't fucking say that word to me. You don't even know what it means.
From the look of it, I can infer that it means you have to destroy yourself for the things you create just to justify their existence.
It means I'm the only one that can do the things that I do. So yeah, I have to keep putting everything into them. Or they're worthless. Or I'm worthless.
Jaxel.
Shut it, TK. I don't want to hear another word from you. I'll show you what I can do. I'll fix everything.
The game state, we're going to flip summon the Brotar, because it was summoned last turn.
Absolutely.
You know, I think I figured out the line. And there you have it. That's game. Congratulations, you won Retro Rumble. Do you want a cookie? Shut up. Vidos is meant to be summoned to an opponent's side of the field to pop a field spell. Obsidian searches on destruction. Then King, Hero, and Priestess all swarm to the field to combat your opponent's boss, culminating in a potential board wipe and an owner's seal trap. What's even the end goal here? You wouldn't understand.
Speed Duel Streets of Battle City releases August 23rd. Continue the trend started all the way back in Duel Links of Konami refusing to add the scary extra deck monster.
Move. What the fuck? Just gonna nudge this over a bit, check the centering, go back here, resize that. Are you done? Not until it's all perfect. Celeste Leo can foretell 4 and add each Solar Celestial you find to hand, then pop cards on the field. Jesus Christ. Evil Hero Neos Lord is a fusion. Where the hell even... Is this the future? Jaxel, how are we in the future? I don't know. Great summoning Poplar Evo for a Yamaha red guy. Give me a second to think! Hey. Where are we now?
Dragon made video.
Which one?
Jinx.
Fuck you.
First video ever uploaded to the channel. Come here to clear my head sometimes.
Alright. Hey, but there's plenty you want to fix about this one, huh? Go on. Tell me the first thing you'd change.
Probably would run in the trash. Never uploaded in the first place.
did that, never would have made it here. Would you?
Do I really want to be here?
They do. A lot of people are happy you're here right now. Happy you've made it as far as you have. And all that started because you didn't let yourself believe what you made wasn't good enough. You're here because you made that choice. Push past those doubts. That's what life's all about, isn't it? Making choices that change our lives every second of every day. We don't know where those choices are going to lead until it's already too late to go back and change them. Frustrating, huh? Makes you wish you could know everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does.